Hmm. All right, welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. We are in verse 23, in the middle of this Ramban. But just recapitulate a little bit. The Torah says, again, Book of Leviticus Chapter 16, verse 23. It says, "Va'aron el Ohel Moed Pashat es Big Day Aban Shelavash Bevoyo El HaKodesh V'Anichem Sham." It says that Aaron is going to come to the tent of meeting. He's going to remove his linen garments that he had worn when he entered the sanctuary, and he'll leave them there. Right? So there are a lot of questions we spoke about last week. Right? Basically, main question is, this verse seems out of order. Right? Rashi brings down this whole thing. Why this verse seems out of order. Really should be later. But whatever, he brings this whole thing, the fact that it's out of order, and then he says what the order should be, etc. So we're in the middle of the Ramban, and the Ramban brought down Rashi's question, right? And the Ramban said, first thing was that the Ramban said, is, first of all, I have to explain this, a different way. I can't explain simple explanation, right? Why? Because the Ramban says, why would the Torah command Aaron to come? It doesn't say what he should do, right? It gives a command to say Aaron should come to the tent of meeting, right? Seemingly only take off his clothing, right? Switch his vestments, right? From gold vestments to linen vestments, or vice versa, and leave them there, right? But he says, why? Why would the Torah give such a command? Why would the Torah give such a command? He's going to come change his clothes, leave himself there, right? Seemingly, leave himself without clothes and leave his clothing there, then he can't use his clothing again. Right? It's very hard to understand. Now, if the Torah is telling me, the Ramban said he's there to do the avodah, he's there to serve, well, what's the Torah telling me? Why would the Torah tell me that? I already know he's there to serve. Right? Also superfluous. Torah wouldn't have to tell me that. That, he's going to take out the ashes or whatever. We already know that. We already know he's there, to serve. So first thing he says is that he's going to bring the Ketores, right? He's going to bring the incense, right? That was brought in the Holy of Holies, right? Remember, it's Yom Kippur. He's bringing it in the Holy of Holies, right? So that's one thing, that he's going to bring that, and then the cloud's going to be there, etc. So that was one whole thing. So then the Ramban says, he says like this. He says that when you look at this whole parsha of what the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is supposed to do, right? He says it doesn't explain what the Kohen is supposed to do at the beginning with his gold investments. Doesn't say. Right? Maybe he's using them for the Tamid Shel Shachar, for the sacrifice in the morning. Maybe he's wearing them for that, or bringing them for that. Right? But the beginning, when he serves, what clothing is he wearing? What vestments is he wearing? Linen. Right? They're linen vestments. There are golden vestments. So says the Ramban, at the beginning, he's wearing linen vestments. So now what's the order? He says the order is he's going to bring the incense, within, i.e., in the Holy of Holies, He's going to take this this goat, right? And it's going to be a sacrifice. And the other one's going to be sent out. Zazel, right? It's going to die, however it's going to die, right? In the desert. So what happened over here? So it says the Ramban, first of all, this is all one thing. It's all one thing. There wasn't anything left to do with these clothing. Except what? What was the last thing? What was the only thing left to do? It says the only thing left to do is take out the trash, take out the ashes. Right? That's the order over here. That's the order over here. Then the Ramban says, again, the Torah is ambiguous. The Torah needs explanation. Rashi set out saying, there's a whole different order. Right? This verse, is out of order. Right? And he goes through what the order should be. The Ramban says, right, first thing he says is, well, I can't explain this simple explanation because it doesn't make sense. God's going to call him and say to come here and then tell him what to do. Right? Or he's going to take off his clothes and what's he going to do? Or to say he's there to serve. Of course he's there to serve. What else is he there to do? Right? So here the Ramban says that maybe you tell me he's starting off with the golden clothing. There's no. Right? There's a certain order here. And when he comes in, what is he doing? He's taking the ketoris. He's taking the incense. It's an obligation to bring the incense in the Holy of Holies. When? On Yom Kippur. No other time. And that was potentially one of the sins that Nadav and Avihu did to deserve death. Is that, the Mishkan went up. They thought it was such an auspicious time. They wanted to bring incense in the Holy of Holies. Well, they weren't allowed to. What's the only day of the year you're allowed to bring incense in the Holy of Holies? That's going to be when on Yom Kippur. But they thought it was such an auspicious time. They did it for the sake of heaven. Problem is, God didn't tell them to do it. There's a number of other potential reasons why they died. It's not really the point here. Remember, we spoke about that a lot previously. But the idea over here is that, okay, first thing is they bring in the incense. They're bringing the incense to the Holy of Holies. So so now you go into this whole order. So what's the end? What's the end game over here? What are you going to do? You're going to take out the ashes. Right? But again, the Torah over here, let's just point out for all those Karaites, don't want to listen to oral law, listen to the rabbis. What's the Torah telling me? Aaron came to the Holy Moed. Very good. What did he come to do? What's the Torah telling me? Zero. Doesn't tell me anything. It's just he came to the tent of meeting, and then he took off his clothes. Right? And he left them there. Torah needs to tell me that. Right? Torah needs to tell me that. Right? Torah just tell me he's changed, he's left there without any clothes and he leaves them there. Or you tell me, the Ramban said, maybe he's there just to serve. It's part of the service. So why does the Torah need to tell me that? Torah definitely does not need to tell me that. We already know he's there to serve. If I already know he's there to serve, there's no point. Right? No point over here. He says he's taking the Ketoris. He's there to take the Ketoris, take the incense. But again, when we look at the Torah itself, don't read it like a newspaper. You got to think, okay, this is what the Torah says. Very good. What does it mean? What does it mean over here? Why would the Torah tell me something? No relevance. Wouldn't make any sense. Aaron came to the tent of meeting. Okay, what was he doing? What's the purpose of it? Gee, I don't know. Then it says he took off his clothing. That's the purpose. He's coming. Right? There are a lot of questions here. Karaites have to come up with their own answers, whatever they may be. Right? These are basic questions. And we're going to see at the end, what does it mean? He left his clothing there. Right? So it comes along the Ramban, tells you a fundamental principle. What's the fundamental principle? The Ramban says that it's the way of the verses in every place to finish up something that's talking. In other words, if the Torah is talking about a specific thing, then you're going to have bunch of verses afterwards finishing up the discussion, right? Even though maybe, later, or it's going to get to late, some of the explanation or some of the verses maybe come a little bit later, right? So it's going to be a whole question. Let's say the verses come to explain this whole thing, whatever it is. But then you have verses later. In other words, it doesn't finish it. In some cases it does, but the Ramban says, what if it doesn't? What if I have verses to explain this even further down the line? So what's the Ramban going to ask? What's the obvious question? Obvious question is, what's it doing there? Doesn't belong there. Totally doesn't belong there. Right? That's what he says. If you're going to tell me, so they're going to have some verses later to explain this and not to finish the whole thing, so to speak. So what's it doing there? Right? That's the question. Why would you mention some verses about the same topic later? If you're going to speak about the topic, finish it. Have all these verses speak about it. There were cases by Tsaras. We spoke about Tsaras, however you want to define what Tsaras is. And then the Torah goes on to a different topic and then brings something else down about Tsaras. The commentaries ask, what's it doing? Why is the Torah explaining it over here? The Torah should explain it 15 verses before, 20 verses before. Because if you're going to explain something, explain it in its entirety. When we talk about building in the Mishkan, there are a whole bunch of verses, chapters, about the loops and the boards and the clasps and all this. Right? It's uniform. It's in one place. But if I have things that are spread out in different places, got to ask the question, why didn't it finish it over there? Why did it leave it over here? Good question. Right? So the Ramban says if that's true, you get the same question over here. Right? You could ask if it didn't finish the whole thing, whatever the topic was, and it's going to bring up this topic again, bunch of verses down the way, or in another chapter. Why? Right? That's what he asks. So therefore, the Torah says, comes Aaron the Oel Moed. Aaron comes to attend the meeting. Why? Doesn't tell me. But he comes with his clothing in order to what, says the Ramban? In order to finish his service. This was the last part. He finished what he's doing. Now he's going to change. Right? After this, he's going to take out the ashes. Right? He's going to take out the ashes that he needs to bring out from it. So once he takes out the ashes, what's he going to do? He'll take off his clothing. Right? His clothing going to be dirty over here. Right? Takes off his clothing. Right? And he goes to the Holy of Holies. Right? And he goes to the holy place. What does he do? He leaves his clothing there. Right? He leaves his clothing there. Right? In a place where he's able to take them off. Right? So he leaves them there. Why does he leave them there? Why doesn't he take them with him? In order to teach you, says the Ramban, that when it says it's going to leave them there, it means you can't use them again. You're not going to use them for another Yom Kippur. Rashi said the same thing. Right? You can't use the same clothing from one Yom Kippur to another, even if you clean them. That you're not allowed to do. So the Ramban said at the end of the verse, says, he's going to leave them there. Very good. For what? Well, they just take them. I don't know. Take them home eventually. Clean them up. Whatever the issue is. No. You're going to leave them there because now it's got no purpose. This clothing, he's not going to do anything with. Why is he not going to do anything with the clothing? Right? Right. Why is he going to do that? Why is he going to do that? Essentially, he's only going to do it to leave it. Right? That's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to do. He's going to leave it there. Right? Essentially, he's going to be left there. Why? It's got no purpose now. Totally no purpose. Right? So therefore, if it's got no purpose, then that's it. Right? That's going to be it. What's he going to use it for? Can't use it. Right? So the Ramban here says, why take off his clothing? Why is he leaving it there? Because it's got no purpose now. That is absolutely zero purpose. Can't use it again. Right? The Ramban here says you can't wear the same clothing next Yom Kippur. So now, what does that tell me? Where are we up to now? It comes on the Ramban and says, now we finish everything speaking about the linen clothing. Right? Because he's going to wear the linen clothing during the day for one purpose. Right? In other words, whatever that is, whatever things he has to do on Yom Kippur wearing the linen clothing, now we're done. Right? That whole thing now is done. Now the Torah comes back and says, now he has to wash himself. Right? He's got to go to the mikveh, change his clothing. We said before, 5 times he's got to do this when he changes from linen to gold. Right? The gold clothing. So now he's going to wash his flesh. Right? He's got to go to the mikveh. Right? Now he's going to wear his other clothing. Right? He's going to wear his known clothing, the Ramban says, for that which he serves all year round. Meaning what? Right? What would be the purpose of telling me that? So says the Ramban, what's the purpose? To teach you that every time he changes clothing from gold to linen or linen to gold, whatever it is, he requires tefillah. He has to go to the mikveh. Right? He has to wash himself. And then it says, then he went out and did the korban, did the burnt offering. Does the burnt offering after that. Because everything he did before, the Ramban says, did with linen clothing. So now the ram that we mentioned is going on the other altar, meaning the outer altar over here. So then the Ramban says, okay, now we're mentioning this whole thing. What he wore first, right? He wore the linen clothing. Then he's going to change. Now he's going to go to the mikveh. Then he takes off his clothing, right? Then he's going to go to the mikveh again because he's changing back. So he's telling you over here, what's the whole purpose of telling me this? To tell you, you need to go to the mikveh between changing clothes. Now, why does he have to come up with that? Right? Rashi says a similar thing also. But why does he have to come up with that? Because it says, again, beginning of the verse says, Bar and El Moed, and he takes off his clothing. Very good. Very good. So if he takes off his clothing over here, that's what the Torah tells me. The Torah tells me he's getting undressed. That's what the whole point is. So says the Ramban, what's the point of telling him he's got to take off his clothing? Because we're ending the whole thing over here. He's taking them off, he's putting them on. Right? It's changing from linen to gold to linen. Anytime he changes clothes, what does the Torah tell me? He's got to go to the mikveh. That's the purpose. That's the purpose over here. It's required to go to the mikveh. So you might have thought, again, my friend Zechariah is going to have to come up with a good explanation here. Right? But the point is, Aaron came to the Moed. Say it again. Aaron comes to the tent of meeting. What does he do? He takes off his clothes. That's the Ramban. That's why Torah's telling me. Telling me because he's got to change clothes. It won't make any sense. Right? Why would the Torah tell me something like that? Say, but it's important. It's changing clothes. For what reason? What reason is it important? It comes on the Ramban and says, because when you change your clothing, or let's say better, when the high priest changes his clothing from gold to linen or linen to gold, got to go to the mikveh. That's the point. Because if I didn't know that, then why is the Torah telling me this? Right? So all you Karaites or Karaite wannabes, give me a reason. Give me a proper reason that makes sense. Torah doesn't give details for nothing. Doesn't tell me things for no reason. Right? You got to give me a reason. And what he's doing, leaving his clothing there. Right? He's going to stand there. He's going to stand there naked. Right? Wait for someone to bring him clothes. He's going to be there for who knows how long. For what? Why would the Torah tell me that? It comes on the Ramban and says, oh, I got a reason. What's the reason to tell you that when you change clothes, the high priest changed clothes on Yom Kippur from linen to gold, the gold to linen, it's got to go to the mikveh. That's the point. Right? That's one thing. Right? Says the Ramban. Now, comes along the Ramban further. And he says, according to Rashi says, he's got to go to the mikveh when he takes out the ashes. Right after the sacrifice, that's his sacrifice is done and sacrifice for the people. Right between Musaf, the additional sacrifice, and the sacrifice in the late afternoon, what we call the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim, meaning the later afternoon sacrifice. Right, so Rashi tells me that the purpose of this tefillah, of this going to the mikveh, is because he took out the ash. Right, he says those are the words also of the Gonim, time of the at the time of the end of the Gemara, talking about the Gonim who came before. They were generation 2 before Rashi, so they agree. The Rashi and the Gonim, they agree over here. Also, seems from the Medrash, there's a Medrash brought down here as well, seems to say a similar thing. Okay, very good. They all agree. They all say the same thing. Tremendous. We got a problem, says the Ramban. I found the Yerushalmi, found the Jerusalem Talmud, in Yuma Tractate, Yuma Chapter 7, second halacha, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. What did Rabbi Yochanan say? Rabbi Yochanan says everyone agrees. If you take out the trash, i.e., you take out the what do you call it? The ashes over here. When did that happen? What time period did this happen? It happened after the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. Happened later. Right? It happened later over here. Rashi seems to say it happened before. It happened before this. So says the Ramban's also written in the Rambam. I got the Rambam. Right? The Rambam over here says similar thing. Also brought down in the Mishnah, the Gemara in Yuma. It says, he sanctified himself, took off his clothing, went down, went to the mikveh, put on his golden clothing, his golden vestments, and then he brought the Keturah. So it seems out of order. In other words, according to Rashi, it seems it's done at a different time. Right? So the difference of opinion here between Rashi, the Goinim, who were together with Rashi against the Yerushalmi, and against the Rambam, and seemingly against the Mishnah and Yuma in the Jerusalem Talmud. They got a major difference of opinion over here. All right, so it comes on the Ramban, so they're going to answer. I'm going to come up with an answer. The Ramban says, what's the order? What's the proper order over here? Says the Ramban, first thing is when the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, starts off his day. What does he start off his day with? Big day lavon. His white clothing, i.e. linen clothes. Right? Then he's got his sacrifice of the people, the extra offering, the musaf offering. Then they take out the guts, put on the altar, I guess, of the sin offering. Then what do I have? The Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. I have this everyday sacrifice that I brought in the afternoon. And then what does he do? At that point, he changes his clothes. Changes his clothes to gold investments. What does he do after that? He changes his clothes. Oh, what do we say? Gotta go to the mikveh. It's the third time he goes to the mikveh. And then what does he do after that? He takes out the ashes. He takes out the ashes with his big day lavon, with his linen clothing. So now we switched from linen to gold. After he switches from linen to gold, he's not going to take out the ashes. Got to switch back to linen. Fourth time. Fourth time now he goes to the mikveh. Then what does he do? He brings incense and he brings libations. Right? So that he changes the fifth time. Right? Changes into big days off. Changes into his golden clothing. That's the fifth time he goes to the mikveh. So that's the order. What's the reason? What's the reason here, says the Ramban? Because nothing afterwards. In other words, this is it. Right? After this this libation, and he changed his clothes, that's it. Nothing else. That's the order. That's the order of the day. And the only thing over here is that, he should be clean. In other words, every time he switches clothing, okay, got to get clean. Got to go to the mikveh. So that's why it stops. That's why the Torah stops by the Talmud Ben Arbaim, by the sacrifice that was done in the late afternoon. So it sort of stops. Right? It sort of stops over here, and then he takes out the ashes. Right? Between that offering and the giving of the Ketorahs. So in other words, what do I have over here? I sort of have a, what's the word? I have something over here that stopped what was going on. In other words, in the middle of telling all these different things he was doing, it sort of stopped. Right? It sort of stopped in the middle. And then it continued. Because otherwise, says the Ramban, I got a major problem here. Major problem. Right? And my major problem is that this verse over here doesn't make sense. This verse should be later. Should totally be later. Right? Because then it's going to tell me in the next verse, which we may get to or not, that he has to wash his flesh in a holy place and take off his clothing. Okay, that explains why he has to, why he has to go to the mikveh. Right? That I understand the continuation, but it seems like you're stopping explaining one thing. The whole thing's not done. In other words, if you're explaining a certain aspect, or you're explaining a certain thing, you don't necessarily stop in the middle. Right? You don't stop and then go on to something else. Because if you stop and go on to something else, there has to be a reason. Right? It's not just, this is the way, if we were Karaites, well, that's the way he wrote it. Okay. Now, even if the Torah is not necessarily written in order, exactly how things happen, there's a juxtaposition of verses. Right? We always say you learn something from the verses. What does the previous verse say? What does the verse before that say? What's the connection between them? Many, many times we've spoken about this. Right? There's always a connection. Got to understand the connection. Right? But if you don't see a connection, and the Torah just makes a statement, says, Aaron came, he took off his clothes and this and that, what does it tell me? Don't tell me anything. Right? Don't tell me why. Don't tell me what the purpose is. So a person can say, you know what? Let's cut to the chase. Let's go to the next verse. Right? Well, the next verse say, he washed his flesh in water in a holy place. He wore his clothes and he went out and brought up this offering, this burnt offering, and that atoned for him and his family and for the people. Very good. Now it's time he went to the mikveh. Okay, what's the connection? We just said, anytime you're changing clothes, that's what it said before. If you're changing clothes, you got to go to the mikveh. 100%, you have to go to the mikveh. And if that's what you have to do. That's the obligation, right? So now, but you didn't tell me that. All you told me is he's changing clothes and he leaves his clothing there. So, right, we say here in Israel, ma kesher, who cares? What's the connection? What's the connection to the service that we're talking about, that we've been talking about for a long time? What in the world's the connection to this service on Yom Kippur? You want to tell me when he changes clothes, then he has to go to the mikvah? Oh, very good. That's the next verse. Perfect. Right? But you got to get to the order. The order is out, it's out of order over here. This verse should have been later. As we went through the order, right? We'll have to rewind, right? As we went through the order, you see this comes after. Even though he changed his clothes in between, that's true. Right? But it's got a certain order. If it's got a certain order, this verse should have been later. Should have been a number of verses later. Comes on the Ramban and says no. Right? Not a question being out of order over here. He gives the order and why the order is that way. And he says they stopped. The Torah here stopped. With the whole thing with the sacrifice of the late afternoon sacrifice in order to tell me he's got to go to the mikveh and change. Otherwise, why does it stop? That verse should have been later. Just tell me, okay, this is the order. Boom, 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 boom. Then he changes his clothes. Okay. But you don't tell me in the middle he changed his clothes for what? Right? Seemingly total out of order. The Rashi gives his explanation what the order is. Right? But you got the Rambam, you got the Jerusalem Talmud, you got the Babylonian Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud against that, right? Seemingly against it. But he's asking a fundamental question. That's what we started with. Right? And the fundamental question is, if the Torah is explaining you something, it's going to explain it in total. It's going to explain it totally, 100%. It's not going to veer off and speak about other things. Once the subject is done, it's done. Oh, but then you're going to say, what if this thing is mentioned later? What if it's mentioned later? Then you're going to explain what it's doing there. Because it should have been mentioned somewhere else. And the fact that it's not mentioned there, or it's not finished where it should be, then you got to give me a reason why. You got to tell me why it's not there. Right? So the Ramban's telling you the reason is because of what we're going to see further. Is because he had to go to the mikveh when he changed clothing. But it's not only that. Right? It's not only that. He's telling you sometimes the Torah will stop. The Torah will stop whatever it's talking about, maybe go on to something else, and then bring something else later. It happens. Right? It's not necessarily so uncommon. But he's pointed out it can happen. So even if it comes later, you're going to say, well, it's all the same chapter. It's all close enough. But Rashi's bothered by that. Right? Rashi's jumping up and down. And he's saying, what are you talking about? We don't do that. It's out of order. It doesn't belong there. Oh, if it comes the end of this Ramban, the end of the Ramban says, yeah, really, it should have been there. Really, this is the order. Right? He goes to the whole thing. This should be the order. But he says the Torah stopped for a specific reason. To tell you, to give you the order of this Tamid Ben Arbaim, the order of the sacrifice that was done later in the day. And then he's going to take out the ashes, right? In between that and bringing the incense. But there's a purpose. It's not just stuck there for no reason, right? It's not just, well, we stopped talking about whatever we're talking about just because we felt like it, just because the Torah felt like it. And then it's going to bring it in later. What purpose? Torah would never do such a thing. Or would it? So Ramban says sometimes it happens. Sometimes you'll see verses a little bit later. A little bit later when it could be, verses down the line. Maybe it could be much later. Maybe it would be a chapter later. And bring it in for another reason. But that can happen. Right? That's not out of the realm of reality. That's not like an impossibility. It can happen. 100% it can happen. Right? But the question has to be asked. That's what the Ramban's telling you. Right? The Rashi asks the question saying the whole thing's out of order. Right? So therefore, this verse should come later. Okay. So the Ramban says I have to address this homiletically. I can't explain simple explanation because Rashi got a good point. This verse doesn't belong. Okay, so what's it doing here? And his basic question was, why is the Torah going to tell me he's taking off his clothes, leaving it there? For what purpose? Why, he's going to stay there with no clothes? For what? Right? Not only that, the Torah's not going to mention that just for nothing. And then he leaves his clothing there. For? Right? So the Ramban explains. He leaves the clothing there because you can't use it for Yom Kippur. Next Yom Kippur. Right? But he says an unbelievable thing here. Right? At least the way it looks. And that is that sometimes you're going to have a verse that seemingly is taken out, put somewhere else, a little bit later, let's say, a few verses down the line, when what we're talking about seems to be stopped. So the Ramban says, how can you do that? If you're gonna talk about something in the Torah, finish it. Don't leave it up in the air and don't bring other things later. Because then everyone's going to ask the question, why? Why are you going to do that? If you tell me things aren't written in chronological order, the way things were, easier to understand. Because it's not in chronological order how things happen. So maybe it's not the exact order, exactly how he was supposed to serve on Yom Kippur. Could be. Okay, but if you have a certain order over here, you're talking about a certain thing, you don't bring something up at the end or you don't stop at the middle and bring something. There's no connection. That's what the Ramban says. Right? But he's telling you there's a purpose in doing that. He says, in general, we don't do that. Torah doesn't do that. There's got to be a purpose for doing so. He says it can happen that you can have verses later that seemingly don't relate to what was said before, but it should have been brought somewhere else. We've seen that before. Right? We've seen that before. We've seen the whole story, Nadav and Avihu. Right? And Leviticus chapter 9 or chapter 10 speaks about it. But then you see later, there are other verses referring to what happened in Nadav and Avihu. Ma Kesher. What's the connection? Because the Torah said at the beginning, Torah said, why? They get punished, they brought a strange fire. Okay. But later it says, because they drank. You're not allowed to drink wine and before you serve. So what's the reason? But the Torah told me that later. Torah didn't tell me that at the beginning. The beginning of that whole thing with Nadav and Avihu should have been brought over there. So there's a whole discussion. There's a whole discussion why it's brought in later and what the real reason is or potential reason that Nadav and Avihu sinned. Spoke a lot about that. So again, a similar idea. That thing's brought in later. So why don't you bring it up in the whole, bring everything up together one shot. You don't necessarily see we're going to get there one day, probably about 102, right? And Leviticus chapter 24 talks about the holidays. It talks about Yom Kippur, talks about Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, etc. It brings up the holidays in other places as well because of the sacrifice that were given, whatever the case is. But the holidays are brought up in one place. The laws of Tzaras begin Parshas Tazria, go through Parshas Mitzorah, one place. All these verses, one place. The Mishkan, building of the Mishkan, all in one place, more or less. Right? In the book of Exodus. But you tell me, if I would have had, verses about the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the book of Numbers or the book of Deuteronomy, you're going to say, Ma Kesher, what's it doing over here? Put it back in its original place. Unless you have a specific purpose. If there's a specific purpose, okay. But the question will be asked normally. Right? I'll give one example. The famous example, beginning of Parshas Vayakil, the end of Book of Exodus. We've had, chapters speaking about the building of the Mishkan. The loops, the bars, the clouds, all these things. Then the beginning of Parshas Vayakil, Exodus chapter 37, it says you got to keep Shabbos. What does that have to do with the Mishkan? What in the world does that have to do with building the Mishkan? So you tell me nothing. Because laws of Shabbos are already given, spoken about a number of times. You got to keep Shabbos, number of times before that. Why are you telling me chapter 37, you got to keep Shabbos? I already know you got to keep Shabbos. Right? Rashi on the spot says, others agree. Since it's a juxtaposition of the verses, I got to explain what Shabbos is doing there. So Rashi says that Shabbos does not supersede the Mishkan, or the Mishkan does not supersede Shabbos, meaning things that I do in the Mishkan are going to be forbidden to do on Shabbos, or anything similar. Otherwise, all those Karaites out there are Karaite wannabes. Give me an explanation based on the verses. Forget oral law, forget anything. Based on those verses in the Torah, in the writings, in Tanakh, what in the world that verse is doing there? We already know you got to keep Shabbos, mentioned a number of times. So what's the connection to the Mishkan? What's the connection to the Mishkan? So Torah tells me. Or what they better. Rashi, commentaries tell me. Very simple. There's a connection. The Mishkan does not supersede Shabbos. Anything done in the Mishkan is going to be forbidden on Shabbos. Right? Anything in the tabernacle, forbidden. One other example, Torah says, I have an obligation to honor my parents, respect my parents. And then it says I got to keep Shabbos. Right? Verse after that says you got to keep Shabbos. What's the connection? Connection is, Rashi says, and others say, if your parent tells you that's a great Shabbos, you don't listen to them. What's the parent going to say if they know anything? Isn't that one of the 10 commandments? One of the 10 commandments. One of the 10 commandments is you have to honor your parents. Yeah, there's also a 10 commandment. One of the 10 commandments. It's also called you got to keep Shabbos. It's also one of the 10 commandments. Okay. So comes along Rashi and others and say, guess what? If your parent tells you that's a great Shabbos, you don't listen to them. What about honoring them? That is the best honor you can do. Doesn't matter if they yell at you, they scream at you, they curse at you. They say all kinds of things. Shabbos comes first. God comes first. They may not understand it. They may not like it. So you tell them, go eat kugel. That's what the Torah says. I have an obligation to God first. But what about 10 commandments? Okay. You got an obligation. You got an obligation also to honor parents. True. And respect their wishes. True. But if they tell you to go against what the Torah says, I got to be respectful and say, my Bible, it says like this. So I have an obligation to follow what God says. I don't care about God. You have to listen to me. So I'd listen to you if it doesn't go against what God says. Right? If it doesn't go against what God says, very good. So then, all things being equal, you have an obligation in general to listen to your parents. Okay? But if it goes against what God says, who comes first? God, every single time. Now, does that mean you're going to come out smelling like a rose? No. They may yell at you, curse at you, who knows what. Doesn't matter. Your obligation comes to God first. Now, based on that, this can cause a lot of problems. A lot of problems. So, if it's something there's no way to get out of, this is black and white. Parent tells you desecrate Shabbos, you don't listen to them. You're obligated not to listen to them. Now, what if it's something they don't want you to do, but really it's only a stringency? It's a stringency, not according to the strict letter of the law. Or even going beyond, lifting Mishurus that didn't going beyond the letter of the law. It's a stringency. Now, if it's going to cause major problems, it's going to cause a major problem, with a person's family, parents, siblings, then you can throw out the stringency for the sake of peace. If it's something, let's say it's a difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities, do you have an obligation to be lenient so you can placate them? So it depends what it is. It absolutely depends what it is. If it's something, let's say, that we wouldn't normally rely on, so lenient opinions we have, under certain circumstances, you can rely on. Again, I'm speaking in generalities over here. Right? Speaking in generality. Gotta ask your own, local Orthodox rabbi what to do, and whatever the situation is. But, if it's something where there's a leniency that we wouldn't normally rely on. Right? But if it's a situation where it's going to cause problems, but it's something we wouldn't necessarily rely on in general. So it could be, again, depends what the case is, but it could very well be that you'd be allowed to rely on this for the sake of peace. Again, I'm not giving specifics. It depends on the case. Now, a person could say, I'm living my life a certain way. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give in to that. Right? At the end of the day, for the sake of peace is worth a lot. But see, we get caught up in saying, I have to jump through hoops and do certain things to placate, let's say, my parents. Okay, that is worth something. But what's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is they could care less. They say, I want you to do this. You're not making a sanctification of God's name by doing it. Right? Let's say. People aren't going to pat you on the back and say, oh, what a beautiful thing you did. What a great thing you did over here, for what your parents wanted. Ain't no one going to say that, let's say. There's no sanctification of God's name here. Do I still have an obligation to do it? Is it going to draw them closer to Judaism? Probably not. Right? Let's say it's not going to do anything. You're not drawing them close. But there's a leniency you can rely on. Right? So you probably know where this is going. You don't want to rely on this leniency. Right? You shouldn't have to rely on this leniency. But sometimes you may have no choice. And if you don't do it, when you could have done it, you look worse. So again, it depends on what the case is. I'm not saying across the board, each case has to be judged in and of itself. But the issue is, we take what we do seriously. We don't necessarily want to rely on certain things we don't have to, but you know what? We might have to. In certain cases, you may have to. But a person's going to say, but they don't even care. They just say, you have to be here. You have to show up. Deal with it. Right? But by you going, what did it accomplish? It might have only accomplished one thing. The only thing it may have accomplished is that there's still peace. So that's worth something. But deep down, most likely a person's going to be rip-roaring mad. Why? Because here you turn the Torah into silly putty, even though technically you had a leniency to rely on. Okay. But see, what do you gain? What do you gain by this? So people will say, you know what I gained? I gained keeping the peace. But you're not drawing them closer. No one else there is being drawn close, let's say. You know what the answer is? So what? Doesn't matter. If you're able to do it, there's a way around it, okay? You may not want to do it. You can make a stink and say, I'm not doing it. Regardless. Even if you could have, you just say, I'm drawing the line here. So, use myself as an example. I had such a case years ago. Got stuck doing something I didn't want to do. Definitely wasn't a sanctification of God's name. Nothing really got accomplished except for the fact, it kept peace. Would have been a big thing, I guess, if we weren't there. But, we made it clear afterwards. Very, very clear. You make an event again, you don't make it in such a place if you want us to come. That was it. I did what I had to do, wasn't happy about it. Was for sure not happy about it, okay? Right? But there was what to rely on. There were big rabbinic authorities said, it could be done. But when the rug gets pulled out from under you, people want to manipulate the system. They see, gotta go. So you're going to say that's annoying, right? 100%. Would have been worse if we didn't go? Yeah. Would have been worse. Should a person rely on such a leniency? No. But if you have no choice, you have no choice. But see, the bigger problem is, even if you could rely on this, let's say, you're not being respected. Like, you're expected to come. You're expected to show up. You don't have to like it. This is what you have to do. Right? It's not about, I respect your opinion. I know it must be hard for you. No. There are things you do. That's it. You don't like it, they'll tell you, go eat kogo. right? But here you're jumping through hoops, relying on something that you really shouldn't be. But okay, you could. Not going to say not. You could. There are rabbinical authorities say you can. Okay. But why you rip roaring mad? You're rip roaring mad because nobody cares. They just want you to be there. They don't care about anything else. You have to show your face. No apologies. No, no empathy. I can understand. You might feel uncomfortable. You're the minority. This is what we're doing. Figure out a way how to come. Now, there are things, okay, that you can do. Might not be the best, but you can do it. But see, we don't feel comfortable doing it. Why don't we feel comfortable doing it? Number of reasons. One is because I don't want to rely on this leniency. But that's not even the main reason. That's part of it. What's the main reason? And I think everyone can understand. The main reason is you're being disrespected. That's the main reason. It's not about, well, find rabbinic license to say it's okay, which someone told me, someone intermarried says, find a way around it. No, there is no way around it. Can't you? No, there's no way around it. Period. Not going to happen. That's it. But see, the problem becomes, they're disrespecting you. And now you got to jump through hoops to please somebody that doesn't care. Essentially, they don't care. They're going to say you got an obligation to come. That's it. Deal with it. So that's hard. Again, you're going to tell me leniencies maybe we shouldn't rely on, but you could. Whatever. Okay, that's one thing. That's one thing to rely on a leniency. Someone's got big shoulders to say you can rely on it. Very good. You still might not be happy doing it. Okay, you'll go. You'll do it. But again, is there a sanctification of God's name? No. Is anyone going to be closer to Judaism because I'm there? No. You say, how do you know? Right? I put all the money I don't have down on the table. I know. They're not going to do anything. Not going to change anybody's attitude. All of a sudden, they're going to start keeping kosher and keeping Shabbat. Right? Let's say. So you're there compromising your beliefs to a certain extent, and you get nothing. You don't have anything here. Oh, but it's not true. You kept the peace. So that is worth something. 100%. But you might not like it. Right? You're going to be rip-roaring mad. Understood. So my answer is, you don't put yourself in such a situation. I got stuck in that situation for different reasons. Shouldn't have been in that situation. But okay. That's what it was. We made clear right after this, or before, that this will never happen again. And it did. You want to make certain things, fine. You don't want to make it kosher? Okay. It's your choice. You want to make it a place I can't go to? Okay. I'm not jumping through hoops to do it. Right? That's not going to happen. So next time, either you want to be inclusive, fine. You don't want to be inclusive, that's also fine. I've been in that situation a number of times. That someone tells, oh, can't you eat here? Why can't you eat anything? This, that. It made me feel guilty. I was like, you could have made it kosher. You didn't. I'm good. I'll have some water. I'll have some soda, whatever. Bring my own crackers. Okay? Don't put a guilt trip on me because you don't want to accommodate me. Okay, that's your choice. I'm not saying you have to. I'll bring my own food. It's not a problem. People get offended. Oh, come on. Is that one of the rules? Yeah. Can't eat your food. It's one of the rules. It's not kosher. Can't eat it. Could a person have made the effort? Of course. They could have made the effort. Didn't dawn on them to make the effort. Okay. I didn't have any hard feelings because of it. But I would say, if you're going to make me feel bad, either do something about it, help me out over here, or say nothing. Because if you say something, that makes you look worse. In other words, what's one of the greatest things we Jews have? Guilt. Putting guilt on everybody. Making people feel bad. Oh, you should have done this. You should have done that. Guilt is a Jewish concept. Big Jewish concept. Right? So they'll pull at your heart. Oh, come on. Can't you compromise? Can't you just look the other way? How can you look the other way than into marriage? No other way to look except that you can't look anywhere. It's forbidden. Period. There are certain things you just can't. There's no way around it. Right? You have no kosher food. I brought some of my own kosher food. Leave it. Don't open your mouth. Don't make it worse. Because they're going to use guilt to get to you. Oh, come on. It's not kosher. There's no problem with trichinosis. What are you being such a fanatic? Leave it. You don't want to have this discussion. Right? I told that to people over the years. They open their mouth. I'm like, you want me to answer? I was like, I'm prepared to answer. I don't think you want to hear the answer. Yeah, you're right. Leave it. They don't want to hear it. So why are you going to make someone feel bad because you don't want to go the extra yard? You don't want to go the extra mile. Okay, that's your choice. I didn't ask someone to do it. But you're not going to make me feel guilty because I can't eat it or I can't compromise. I'll give another example. See, anyone can learn from, everything I've had to go through. And there are times there's just no ways around situations. So I was by a mourner's house many years ago, and a relative I hadn't seen in a long time, of the opposite sex, much older than me, much older, blood relative, comes over to give me a hug. I took like 2 steps back. I sort of waved, put something in front of me. It was bad. I'm just going to say it was bad. Right? So someone mumbled under their breath, which I was standing right there. Not going to exactly repeat it, but it was pretty nasty. What could I do? According to many rabbinic authorities, again, this could be a Jew or non-Jew, doesn't matter. Person of the opposite sex, you might have to kill yourself before they shake your hand. It might be something you have to give up your life for. That's how far it goes. Oh, come on. Fish handshake. Doesn't mean anything. Little hug, come on. Person's 85 years old. So what? Torah says it's forbidden. So what am I supposed to do? Jump out the window? What am I supposed to do? You're caught in public. You're totally caught in public. You're stuck. The only thing you can do, as I always say, is damage control. You're never going to win that argument. Never. Person, 85 years old? Come on. Well, they were younger than that. 70, whatever it was. Somebody is still much older than me. They're right now 40 years older than me. 41. Person in their 90s now. And if I saw this person, still can't hug her. It's not a personal thing. You're gonna say, come on, that's how far the Torah goes? Or as somebody said, under their breath, come on, she's an old woman. She didn't say it so much under her breath. I heard it clear. Come on, she's an old woman. Like, what are you thinking, you retard? I mean, she didn't say retard, but can't say that if you want to be politically correct. But that's pretty much what she said. Like, you're out of your mind. Okay, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Am I allowed to hug this person? No. Fish handshake? No. There's no way around it. According to some, if I do that, I have to die. Well, I don't want to give up my life. I'm not interested in dying. Right? But that's halacha. Shaking a person's hand to the opposite sex, yeah, death penalty. You have to give up your life over here rather than do it. The person's in business, okay, it's problematic. Person shakes out their hand, one way around it, stand with the hands behind your back, you give a little bit of a bow, you say, I only shake hands with ugly people. Sort of, deflates it a little bit. Right? Or we say, I'm not a shaker, sorry, religious reasons, I can't shake. People who understand it, Jews get offended. Could be non-Jews may get offended also. They may respect it a little bit more. I had a relative said, I made a joke that at a wedding, I think it was a wedding many, many years ago. And it was before I became religious. And, I made a joke and said, you're the last person I ever danced with at a wedding of the opposite sex. They didn't think it was funny. Can't imagine why. Not only they think it was funny, but they basically told me, again, this is extremism. You want to call me, as an extremist? People can say what they want. Leftists are pretty extreme also. So this person made the following statement. And they said, if you wouldn't come up, if I saw you and you would not come up and give me a hug and a kiss, don't even bother calling me. Don't even bother talking to me. It's like, you're nothing. You're a zero. I would have nothing to do with you. We're related. I mean, person's no longer alive, but we're related. We're related. This is what the person said. I have nothing to do with you. Like, you're less than human. What? You wouldn't give me a hug and a kiss? Because of religion? Then what do you answer to that? I'll tell you what my answer was. It didn't go over very well. I said, listen, it was so good, I could never replicate it. We danced so well. It's like, there's no way to replicate it. No one will come close to you. That's what I said. Something to that effect. Slammed with a capital S. Take the sledgehammer and go whap. At least 100 times. Did not go over at all. What are you supposed to do? What happened to being open-minded? If I was a Sikh or a Hindu and I said that, maybe get more respect. Maybe. Bring out Rodney Dangerfield, right? No respect. What do you answer to that? There's no right answer. The only answer, whatever you say, is bad. The only question is how bad. What are you supposed to do? So there was somebody that points out, yeah, I'd rather just not go and get involved. Right. Sometimes you don't have a choice. If you have a choice, you're right. That would have been my choice. Right? But that's not what happened. It's not whatever. Something happened that I wasn't going to go. 100% I wasn't going to go. But certain circumstance changed. Question got asked again to someone else, and they said, I don't understand the problem. It's fine. And this is someone who's, pretty important rabbi. No longer in this world. Someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I got stuck. Second opinion. Someone got a second opinion without asking me. So they got a second opinion. He says nothing wrong with it. So now what? Two rabbinic authorities that disagree. Right? This is what happened. This is why you don't go ask when you ask someone a question unless they make a mistake, an egregious mistake. When they're stringent, you don't go ask another rabbi, see if they're going to be lenient. Not allowed to, that's forbidden. Torah prohibition. Right? It's a Torah prohibition. It might be rabbinic actually. But whatever, it's brought down, clear. You ask a rabbi their opinion, you cannot go to someone else because you don't like their opinion, go somewhere else. Can't do that. That's called rabbi shopping. That's forbidden. 100% forbidden. This person didn't know any better. They said, hey, I asked another Orthodox rabbi, said it was fine. Now what? Now what? Now you're stuck. Now, the Orthodox rabbi I asked, and a few other Orthodox rabbis I asked are bigger than this person in knowledge. But okay. You're going to explain that to someone whose biggest question they're going to ask is ketchup or mustard on my hot dog? You lose. This rabbi's Orthodox. He said it's okay. right? So in that case, I get stuck. What was I supposed to do? The best thing would have been not to have gone, but now that the Pandora's box has been opened, you sort of get stuck. So I had to go. It looked really bad. What, you're not going to listen to this? You hold to this rabbi, don't you? Yes. You're not going to listen to him? So it's hard. So after this whole thing, I didn't explain, listen, we already asked the question. You can't ask a question if we already asked. And this other rabbi didn't know. Right? Because I met him, I told him what happened. He said, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have got involved. Okay? He didn't know. Right? It's more than judging him favorably. He had no idea. If he would have known, he wouldn't have said anything. Okay? So I got stuck. It wasn't his fault. Someone else's fault. It wasn't his fault. Okay? Right? But there's a general rule. You don't rabbi shop. You don't say, wow, I had someone do this. They put themselves in a bad situation. I said, right, I can't help you. I can't help you in this situation. No, I just wanted your opinion. Because I asked this rabbi, that rabbi, and the other rabbi, and I wanted your opinion. I said, great, you're rabbi shopping. I can watch the hair I don't have in my head grow. Not allowed to do that. What you take 5 different opinions, see which one you like the best. It's like, I don't know, picking different types of chocolate. No, I like this one. No, I like that one. You're not allowed to do that. You don't ask for opinions. He has one rabbi, what's his opinion? That's it. If he made an egregious mistake, okay, you can get another opinion. Right? If he made a specific mistake in something that's obvious. But if not, you can't, I don't like that opinion. I'm going to go somewhere else. That's forbidden. 100%. That's forbidden. You can't go to someone else because you like their opinion better. If you already asked somebody, that's it. You asked the question. That's why, I had somebody, thank God, not in contact anymore. But the person drove me nuts. Every time he asked the questions, oh, but there are other opinions like this. So I kept saying, so why are you asking me? But other rabbis disagree. Okay, so go ask them. Why are you asking me? I know there are other opinions. If you want an opinion, ask me. You don't want my opinion, that's fine. But now you're going to tell me there are other opinions, disagree? Okay. I'm not, if there are, that's true, fine. So go ask them. Why asking me? So I stopped. I said, don't ask me questions anymore. I got tired. Same thing kept happening over and over and over again. You don't pick and choose. There are other opinions. Why are you asking? Like someone, I'll give you another example. Someone, I've heard this a number of times. My Rebbe holds you're not allowed to wear techeles. Tzitzis that have red dye, that have blue dye. Right? Now, some will say, if I put in my tzitzis, it doesn't nullify it. It's not forbidden. So I gain, even if it's not the real thing. Right? If it's the real thing, I totally gain. If it's not the real thing, I don't lose. So says Mori Verebi, Arav Agon, Ramoshlita should be well. I've heard him say it a number of times. You don't do anything you don't have a clear-cut tradition on. Period. But you don't lose out. If I put on techeles, true. You don't necessarily lose out, even if it's not the real thing. So people say you have nothing to lose. But he holds, and other people hold, you don't do something you don't have a clear-cut tradition on. Now, some other people say we have enough of a tradition to say it's it may be the right thing. Okay? He doesn't hold that. I can tell you, over the years, he hasn't changed. Someone comes to me 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Friday night, he said, oh, I heard Rosh Hashanah wears techeles. I said, no. He said, go ask his son. I said, I'm telling you, he hasn't changed his mind. So he said, go ask him anyway. So fine. I saw his son last week, the week before. I said, oh, by the way, I said, the Rav changed his mind about wearing techeles. He goes, you think he changed his mind from anything he wrote? I said, no, I'm just asking. I said, because I know he didn't change his mind. But I said, so what happened? Someone told me he's wearing techeles. So his son told me, he said, yeah, someone came, showed him techeles, started bringing like all these different proofs why he thinks it's okay. My father nodded, whatever, and that was it. So I said, what do you do with the techeles? He said it's in one of his drawers somewhere. Is he wearing it? No. Is he ever going to wear it? No. We don't lose anything from it. Okay, doesn't matter. Right? That's his opinion. It's not changing. It's not going to change. Right? Yeah. You want to go to someone else, who holds you're allowed to wear? Okay, so go to someone else. You're not going to change his opinion. You're going to say, oh, but this rabbi, that rabbi, he's the Torah giants of the generation, according to everyone. They're not changing his opinion. Right? I've heard this a number of times over the years. Not the first time. Right? Someone else told me the same thing. No, I heard it. Says it's not true. So I can tell you it's not true. Because he's never going to change his mind. I've heard him say 100 times. Maybe twice. No, maybe 5 times. Whatever. I've heard him say a lot. You don't do anything you don't have a tradition on. Over and over and over he said it. I said, what in the world do you think he changed his mind? What do you think? Fell on his head? Changed his mind? He didn't change his mind on it. He says, no, I'm telling you this, that. I said, I'll verify it, but I'm telling you, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. Right? I'll put all the money I don't have on the table. You're wrong, period. He said, so look into it. Same thing. It's our son. Same thing happens. Throwing from Techelis, this, that, put it away, doesn't wear it. That's it. Didn't change. You're not allowed to go shopping for opinions. So I've been spoiled the last 26, 27 years. I've been able to ask him anything about anything. Anywhere. Whether, the laws of kashrus, the laws of damages, the laws of lulav, esrog, all these things. He's an open book. So I'd be able to ask him everything. I don't pick and choose. I take the stringencies with the leniencies. Even though people say, oh, he doesn't have any leniencies. I said, oh, yeah, I can write a whole book on a number of leniencies he told me I would never repeat. I heard leniencies. Everyone said, oh, he's so stringent. Now he calls it the way he sees it. I've seen him give leniencies. People just think he's just very stringent. But again, you're not allowed to pick and choose. You want to ask a certain rabbi question, fine. Right? You get an answer unless they made a total mistake. You got to listen to it. Asking the question is easy. Listening to the answer is not. Not at all. Right? But we get stuck in certain situations. And they're not good situations to be in, I would agree. Right? So if I had my choice of all the situations I've been in, I had to rely on things I wouldn't necessarily rely on. Okay. Why did that happen? Because I had no choice. There were certain things I had to there were certain things I had to do. Couldn't give honors to certain people. Why? Because I couldn't. Nothing personal. Did I win any any favors? No. I just look bad. Okay. Try to explain it's nothing personal. You lose. There's nothing to do. You want to change your status? Okay. We can talk about that. And even if you do deserve the honor, okay. I have no problem giving someone honor if they deserve it. But if you can't, the Torah is not silly putty. The Torah is not a game. People make it into a game. I know someone, I'll just throw this out there. I think it's kind of funny that, I know someone had a baby and whatever, the baby's Jewish. So a great grandmother's coming in. It's not a small thing. I'm not going to say it's a small thing. They're coming in for the baby name. But when is the baby naming normally done? For a girl, it's done in synagogue usually, the first time they can. Either on let's say the baby's born on a Tuesday. When are they going to name the baby? Probably on Thursday or Shabbos. They don't have a name. So the father will get called up to the Torah. They'll say a special blessing, and they'll say, Kara Shem B'Yisrael, and they call the name, amongst the people of Israel, whatever the girl's name is. That's what it is. Right? That's what it is. So it's either done during the week, Monday, Thursday, or it's done on Shabbos. That's it. They'll say Mazel Tov, maybe the person will have a Kiddush, I don't know, depending when his wife gave birth, whatever it is. That's it. Does it make a whole fanfare? Sounds kind of silly. You make a whole fanfare for the sake of this baby name. Oh, it's such a big thing, a baby naming. If I were to think of like, the top things in Judaism to do, this is not, this is not on top of the list. You have to do it 100%, right? Definitely should do it, in synagogue, whatever. But it's not like a whole drawn out thing. Fine, if a person names the baby, let's say on Shabbos, does that mean they make the Kiddush on Shabbos? No, doesn't mean that. The wife wants to get her strength back, whatever it is. They don't have to make a Kiddush at the same time. Some do, some don't. That doesn't nullify it over here. But to make a whole thing and say, yeah, we're gonna go to this big baby naming, this okay. I just like it's kind of funny to hear. It's like, oh, it's like this big ceremony. 2 seconds. Right? All right. 20 seconds. That's all it takes. Call your name, this, that, fine. That's it. Because they don't have any ritual. If you're Reformed, they don't do very much. So this is a big thing. Gonna have a baby name. Okay. What about preparing for Passover? Oh, we don't bother with that. We just go run through the Seder. Okay, we'll light Hanukkah candles. Not a big deal. Other things? Nah, we're Reformed. What can we do? It's a big thing. I'm not gonna say no, great grandchild. Be there when the baby's named. I get it. Baby's already been born. Baby's already born, as far as I know. Right? So they're drawing this out. They're gonna make it, this special day. I don't know, probably call it, I don't know if they're calling it by the name or not. Whatever it is, it's kind of silly. Because they're making a big thing out of something that's not really big. Within Judaism, it's very small when you think about it. It's got to be done. I'm not saying not. So when does the baby boy get his name at the bris? Right, the circumcision. So Friday night, people will go, to the house to wish Mazel Tov. There'll be food there, whatever, So sometimes I'll ask, some of the brothers and sisters, no, what's the baby's name? They go, doesn't have a name. I go, why not? What do you mean? They forgot the name? What? Your father didn't give it a name? Why come it doesn't have a name? What are you talking about? You got to wait for the bris. I was like, no, I want to hear the name. What's the name? If people like me start up, they're like, no, you have to go to the circumcision first. I said, oh. I said, that's one of the laws. It's like, yeah, you don't give a name for a boy before the bris. I was like, good to know. Okay, that's a bigger thing. In different ways. Baby's gonna get named also, but there's other things going on there. We'll get grosser, right? Other things going on at the same time. But when you don't have any ritual, and you're just making it up as you go along anyway. So like you'll take something that's, I'm not gonna say it's insignificant, right? But when it comes to ritual and things we do, it's not, out of the top 10 things I would think that are like very important in Judaism, this is like number 350,220. It's like way out there, way out there. But they don't have anything. So if they don't have anything, they'll make a big deal about it. Okay. But I just, when I heard about it, it's just, it's a good thing. Sometimes I'm on the phone, people can't see my reaction. Because I'm like, I was like, come on, you're going to fly 2 hours, 3 hours, this and that for baby name. Okay. Listen, if you tell me they're making a kiddush and doing other things, which, they probably might be, who knows? Whatever it is, may go to a party, who knows? Whatever, but it's a bigger scheme of things, relatively small. But like sometimes I hear some of these things and, I just laugh. Like, I'll give another example. Someone has a Hanukkah party. They have a Hanukkah party. So, it's a thing to get family together, very good. So let's say most people in the family are non-Jews. And you got a non-Jew actually lighting the candles. Kind of silly. Not only that, most of them are intermarried. Most of them going the way of the Greeks anyway. So it defeats the whole purpose. It's a joke. Oh no, it's about family getting together and it's, and it's very nice and whatever. They say we've been doing this for so long. I don't know. How long have they been doing it? 75, 80 years? It's a big thing. Okay. But now most of the people are not Jewish. They're all going in the wrong direction, right? They're all going the way of the Greeks. So what are you celebrating for? You're going against everything it stands for. They're like, oh, whatever. You're such a fanatic, But what does it represent? What does all this mean? It's just make believe. It's all a bunch of fun. You can tell me, okay, they're non-Jews in the process of conversion and they're making blessings and they're doing it, whatever. Okay, it's one thing. But if that's not the case, they're not Jewish, they're Christian even, being brought up, some of them as Christians, whatever it is. And they're sitting there lighting the candles? Come on. That's exactly what the evil inclination wants. For us to be like them. So we're going to gather on, people are going to gather, families are going to gather to Hanukkah. Most of the people aren't Jewish. You're going to have a non-Jew light the candles. What does that say? You know what that says? You don't know anything about the holiday. Stupid. You don't know what it represents. You're right. It's just a family get together. Fine. Forget about the candles. Forget about saying God's name, making blessings. Whatever. Like, some of these things are, a person grew up with it and they see it. Right. So, a Christian sees where their families, ex-Christian will see where their families are going, what they're doing. It's mortifying. It's mortifying. I don't have any other word for it. It's just seeing them go totally in the wrong direction. And, oh, you're going to find hell forever. Right. You don't believe in JC, but they make a travesty of a mockery of it. Most of them, they don't really believe it. A lot of them, it's custom by them. Okay. Do some this, some that. But the bottom line, they don't really, unless they're Bible thumpers, it's a different issue. Right. But see, you got a big mouth like me, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. Because I'm liable just to say something like, well, I'll give another example. Someone told me, yeah, I went to this bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, this girl, and you would have been so proud. I said, great. How would I have been proud? This girl put on tefillin. Forbidden for women to wear tefillin. Different reasons, not the point. Right? Said even you would have been proud. So what did I say? So I said, you realize who you're talking to. I'm an Orthodox Jew. You realize it. Oh yeah, I forgot. Whatever. I thought it was a big thing. I could have just let it go and say, yeah, whatever, But like a lot of times people say things and they don't realize who they're talking to. They have no clue. Like someone told me something last week. I'm not going to repeat it. Someone made like I mentioned this last week, whatever. A really below the belt comment. I'm like, are you serious? I think the person's going a little bit senile, but that could be. Right? But I'm like, really? This is, you think this is what I'm going to do? It's like blurted out there. Out of nowhere. So like, it was below the belt. They didn't think so. They're like, why, you going to do this? No. Never had intention to do that. Well, like, why would you think I would do that? That was my answer. I was like, why would you think I would do that? 9 times out of 10, someone there points out, I wouldn't get involved, I wouldn't even mention it. Right? 100%. Sometimes you just look at people and say, come on. Right? This is what you really think? Someone there asks, isn't what other rabbis teach the same as getting their opinion? Depends for what. If they're talking, let's say on the Parsha, Torah portion of the week, they're giving something about that. Okay. Could there be other rabbinic authorities that disagree with that interpretation? Sure. Right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about you asked a rabbi a certain question in Jewish law. You asked them, like someone asked me. Someone asked me, my son's getting married. She's Jewish. Son obviously not Jewish. I should make that clear. Shouldn't say obviously. Son's not Jewish. When did he get married? Got married on Shabbos during the 9 days. We're not allowed to listen to music or go to a wedding. So the person who's Jewish tells me, Rabbi, I'm going anyway. Just tell me what I have to do. Puts me in a very envious position, doesn't it? Right? Or, says, Rabbi, I'm going anyway. Says, I'm going to stay by the place. I'll bring my own food. Doesn't have an obligation to pray with 10 men. Okay. There are ways around certain things. I said, you can't listen to music. I said, they play music. You got to walk out. You got to bring your own food. It's not ideal. 100% it's not ideal. This person said, my son's getting married, I have to go. This guy knows his mother's an Orthodox Jew. Out of all days to get married is Shabbos. Couldn't get married on Sunday? Forget about the 9 days where the mourning customs are very severe. Can't eat meat, can't drink wine, especially can't get haircuts during this time. You know, you're thinking about the destruction of the temple. And here people are on the dance floor doing the jitterbug. Like, what are you doing there? Well, the person said, I have to go. It's my son. How can I not go? Right? So the question was, what am I allowed to do or not to do? The person wasn't saying, I'm not going. You're not going to convince me not to go. Okay? So I gave this person guidelines. What to do. The question is, someone asked you a halachic question. Is this permissible or forbidden? Unless the person made an absolute mistake and they say it's forbidden. So according to them, it's forbidden. You're not allowed to go to someone else. That person, no, it's permissible. You asked. Listening to someone else's class that you're getting their philosophy. True. You know, that's true in the way they think and what they believe. Okay. Right? Now, they'll tell you, I'll give an example. Someone will tell you women, whether they're Sephardic or Ashkenazic, are not allowed to cover their hair with wigs. There's no possible permissibility to cover your hair with wigs. They're going to say, first of all, there's a problem. It looks better than human hair. Second of all, you got this problem which may or may not have been solved, and that is hair comes from, in wigs, a lot of times hair can come from India. It's idolatry. It's how you get around that problem. Okay. Forget about that. That's not the total issue. The issue is whether a woman should cover her hair with a wig or not. Now, some people will tell you, beyond the shadow of a doubt, you're not allowed to. That's it. According to Sephardic tradition, for sure. And then they'll say, according to Ashkenazic tradition also. But there are plenty of rabbinic authorities in Ashkenazic tradition. Oh, it's okay. My Rebbe being one of them. Rebbe Elisha being another one. I mean, great rabbinic authorities. They just hold, it cannot be ostentatious, cannot be too long. Right? So if it's not a problem, let's say the hair coming from India, okay. So they hold it's permissible. Now, if somebody tells you, and I've heard this, if someone tells you everybody holds it's forbidden, they're lying. They have a certain agenda they want to give over. But you have to know. And they're telling you everybody holds, no. If it's a problem of hair from India, that's a different issue. Not talking about that. That might be a real issue today. Still may be a real issue today. But the issue of whether you're allowed to wear or not is not across the board forbidden. I can tell you. Many top rabbinic authorities, my Rebbe included, hold it's okay. Right? And people say, oh, your Rebbe's head of the Eidah Haredis, women shave their heads and this and that. Bet his daughters don't wear wigs. I said, I bet they do. And they were shocked. I said, don't open your mouth unless you know. I said, his granddaughters, they wear wigs. Daughter-in-laws, they wear wigs. How do I know? Start with my own eyes. Right? Take off my glasses. Start with my own eyes. It's like, that's shocking. No, it's not. Because you don't know him. You don't know how he holds. If you would know how he holds, you wouldn't say that. His wife might not have, I don't know, she took off her wig, I think. Right? She only wore scarves or whatever. But her kids didn't. His kids wore wigs. They still do. I'm not saying all of them, whatever, but, definitely seen it with my own eyes. So the problem is, if someone tells you this is the only way, it may not necessarily be true. Because they're telling you what they want you to hear. They want themselves to say so that you hear it. But it doesn't necessarily mean across the board everybody holds that. So you're going to say, how do I know? Oh, valid question. How do you know? So you only know if you ask someone. You have to ask, is that the halacha across the board? Could be, could not be. Could be a difference of opinion. Well, sometimes I've heard people say, this is halacha, like they're saying, that's halacha, it doesn't change. Beg to differ. For your community, that might be the halacha, not for mine. But they're not telling you that. See, sometimes people will hide things, and they'll tell you this is the straight halacha, and it's not really true. But they want to get their opinion out there, and they want to say what they okay. But you got to be honest, and you got to say there are rabbinic authorities hold it. They go out to wear wigs. Again, forget about the problem from India. They'll say it's okay as long as it's not too ostentatious, not too long. If it's too long, that's forbidden. Everyone would agree. But to say, Ashkenazic rabbis hold you can't wear wigs, not true. Not true. I know it's not true. So why would some people say it? Because they want to make a point. I'm not saying they do it all the time. But there are times I've heard such things, and I said, let me listen to this again. Listen to it a third time. It's not true. They're misleading. I'm not saying, they have an agenda and and they're heretics. I'm not saying that. But when someone does not give over the other opinion to say it's okay and that we hold it's okay, then why are they saying it's totally forbidden according to everybody? Because they want to make sure people don't wear wigs. Okay. But what they're telling you is not necessarily true. Right? They're skewing things. Let's say like that. I'm not talking about people outright heretics. You don't listen to them anyway. A lot of people, legitimate. I will make one other statement. One other statement. And that is, a person should comment on what they know. If they have a lot of knowledge, if they have a lot of knowledge, a lot of halachic knowledge, and they can poskin, they can tell you, laws and kashrus and Shabbos and different things. Okay. But I'm going to say like this. Someone involved in outreach, in Jewish outreach, does not necessarily make them a world-class halachic authority. Let me repeat that. Someone involved in outreach doesn't mean they don't know anything. I'm not saying that. Plenty of people I have met that don't know that much, but there are people with knowledge. I'm not going to say not. But if they're a kiruv person, in general, doing outreach does not necessarily make them a halachic authority. Now, does that mean they know answers to questions? Sure. Does that mean they could answer questions in Shabbos? Could be. Depends what level of knowledge they have. And there are people with different levels of knowledge. And some people, between rabbis, they know someone's got more knowledge, less knowledge. We're able to figure that out just by what we hear. So if they're good at kiruv, okay. But when someone says this is the halacha, let's see. Let's see if that's the case or not. So there are times I've heard kiruv people say certain things that are not true. They're telling you this is verbatim, this is what it says, but there are other aspects they're not telling. I'm not saying across the board. I'm not saying, they're born liars. Not saying that. I'm just saying their status of authority because of what they do, unless they're very well learned. If they're very well learned, okay, we can disagree. I don't have an issue with that. I do have one issue. My one issue is people talk a good game, and that's fine. I want to know how much they know. I want to know how much time they've been learning. Rabbi Uri Zohar, blessed memory, right? The most famous Baal Tshuva. He was a famous Israeli actor, right? Anyone wants to read any inspiration, his book was My Friends, We've Been Robbed. All about how he became religious. And for years and years, when he became religious, they told him to sit and learn. And then eventually he got involved with Jewish outreach, against his will, because he wanted to sit and learn. But they told him, you got to go out, But they made him sit for years. For years. At the end of his life, that's all he was doing. He was learning night and day. But they didn't tell him to go out straight away. They didn't say, okay, we'll give you 2 years to learn, we'll help you in this and that, and then you go out. They didn't do that. They wanted him to have knowledge. Knowledge means being well versed in the Gemara, being well versed in the commentators, being well versed in Jewish law. That's what my Rebbe ingrained in me. He said, you could have been good, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, gone out, you had 2 little kids. He stopped me. Why? He said, I don't want you to be like one of these rabbis. I want you to learn. I want you to learn a lot. I want you to learn everything. I had the money. I could have done it. Still, working my way through. See, my question is, people give classes and great classes. That's true. But you have to learn yourself. You have to find time to learn yourself. So yeah, people talk and they have knowledge. Okay. My question is, I don't know how many people care about this or not, right? My question is how much knowledge they really have. Some of them, sat and learned in yeshiva for, maybe a number of years. Could be. And then they went out, whatever. Gave classes and make videos and all that. Okay. Right? Does that make them a world-class scholar? I'm not taking anything away from them in the success. That has nothing to do with success. You don't have to have that great knowledge to be successful. Like my Rebbe would say, how could I, how is someone successful in America? We'll pick on America here. How can someone be a successful rabbi in America? All you have to do is know how to speak. You don't even have to know that much. If you know how to speak, you're golden. Knowledge? Come on. World-class knowledge? Nah, you don't need that. To be successful, you don't need it. Told me this a number of times. He says, your obligation, and we're telling me this today if I went to see him, your obligation is sit and learn. That's your obligation. You help others, you give classes, okay. But see, the question is going to be, you get upstairs after 120 years, how much did you learn? Now you say, but I was saving souls, okay. I was saving Klal Yisrael, bringing people back, true? Worth a lot, 100%. At what expense? At what expense? So a person can have knowledge. They can have learned a number of things. I'm not saying not. Right? I've yet to find, and again, I have high standards, but I've yet to find, in general, people out there that, speak a good game, that have spent years and years, day in and day out, learning 10, 12, 15 hours a day. Going through, the entire Talmud and more. Other people quote Kabbalah, people quote other things. Practical speaking, you've gone through Shas, you've gone through tractates one after another. You're gonna say people don't have time. They're busy preparing the class to do it. Okay. So what I'm saying is the person has to be careful. Because a lot of these people, they mean well, they do good work. Do tremendous work. I'm not going to say not. My question is, what's their knowledge base? How much have they really gone through? Thank God I got my mornings at least 3 times a week. Learn my own things, prepare things, different things. Been doing this for years. Maybe at the expense of other things. Okay. And people are busy giving classes day and night. They don't have much time to learn for themselves. Okay. They rely on things they learned before, or they look things up. Well, okay. My question is, how many of these people today have world-class knowledge? That's my question. And I've yet to find, I'm not saying they don't have knowledge. They may have knowledge. But world-class knowledge, they've gone through the entire Talmud? No. They haven't. If they have, then I'm wrong. Totally wrong. Right? But it's not going through it very quickly. It's taking step by step, day by day, 1 page at a time. So people like that, they can speak great. They can have knowledge. I'm not going to say they don't have knowledge. I'll repeat that again. Not saying they don't have knowledge. But remember one thing, they're not world-class rabbinic authorities. So when they say this is the law, it may be, it may not be. The way they see it. Maybe they've heard other people say it, but again, it's not across the board, per se. They'll bring according to, what they want to bring. But you can't say, no Ashkenazi rabbi, I've heard this. Nobody holds you out to wear wigs. Not true. It's 100% not true. There is a serious issue with the wigs from India. I get it, from the hair. The hair from India. It's still an issue today. That doesn't mean Ashkenazi rabbinic authorities told you can't wear wigs. Doesn't mean that. That is misleading. It's one thing I can't stand, as most people know. I can't stand people who mislead and misrepresent. You know, if you tell me, okay, they disagree on this, they disagree on that, fine. But if you tell me nobody holds it, this and that, because they have an opinion, they have an agenda, they want to get out, okay, I beg to differ. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. That's misleading. That's misrepresenting. Doesn't mean they're heretic. You know. But you have to keep in mind, they're not world-class rabbinic authorities. Some may be. Some may know, a lot. Okay. But people go out there, before they should, before they have a solid basis behind them. Doesn't mean they can't be successful, but you cannot circumvent your own learning. You can't push off your own learning. A lot of people have learned, for some years. I've been spoiled. I've been learning for 30 years. Still have a lot to go through. So I can tell who knows what. They know more, they know less. But someone who does outreach does not make them a rabbinic authority. They can have their own rabbinic authorities they go to. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. If these rabbinic authorities are legit, I don't have a problem. What I have a problem with is people misrepresent. And people lie. People make up things. That I have an issue with. So in other circles, I won't take them seriously because I don't believe they have the knowledge. Take someone who's, the head of a yeshiva, has got his own base that I wouldn't take anything he says seriously. Because I've heard other things he said. He's wrong. Simply wrong. About a lot of things. Not even going to give me airtime mention his name. Right? They're totally wrong. Person gets all the honor and this and that. Oh, you're jealous. There's nothing to do with being jealous. If a person's a fraud, they're a fraud. Nothing to talk about. Right? How much personal learning, this knowledge this person has. Wouldn't take what they say seriously about anything. They have a track record. You tell me, oh, he's gone through this, he's gone through that, he's gone through the other. He's got a serious base of knowledge. Not what I see. I see it by a lot. They're going to say, but you have very high standards. Okay. Again, let's make clear. We're not saying they don't have knowledge. I'm not saying not. They may have knowledge. They may have a lot of knowledge. Rabbinic authorities in and of themselves? No. That not. Right? I wouldn't call myself a rabbinic authority. What I know, I know. What I don't know, I don't know. Right? What's the Mishnah Perkei Avos say? You have to know your place. Well, the people that don't necessarily know their place. Which is a problem. They think they're bigger than they are. So if you tell me you go to other rabbinic authorities, ask you questions, you're not sure, very good. But be very careful what you say in public. Very, very careful. Because it could be misleading. And again, I've heard this a number of times. A number of times. Where someone said something, I'm like, but that's not true. It's true to a certain extent, but it's not fully true. Right? Yeah, it's like a contact and say, listen, you made the statement, it's not necessarily true. Could do that. Never did. Right? It comes up. Not I'm saying it comes up all the time or it's even that frequent, but it can come up. So a person has to be careful. And if a person's not sure, you got to ask. Because you can't necessarily take what they say verbatim. They're not rabbinic authorities. It's a harsh thing to say, but they're not. Most people in Kiev are not. They have people that they ask you questions to. Okay. If they learned it themselves, very good. I've seen people with much less knowledge that there are basic things they didn't know. And they were doing things, okay, they're relying on certain things they're allowed to rely on, but they didn't even know it's a question. If you're out there, you got to know what the questions are and what to do. And if you don't know what to do, obviously you have to have a rabbinic authority to go to. Right? It doesn't necessarily make that person a rabbinic authority. Let's say like that. Right? So, so the question is, you are getting their opinion, but again, if it's something in philosophy, doesn't mean, there are differences of opinion. Comes to Jewish law, though, you ask them a question, you can't go somewhere else. That's the point. Someone asks, does a non-married woman wear a wig or a scarf? No. Even though the Code of Jewish Law says married women, this idiot, there was an idiot who made a video about this. Just throw this out there while you mention it. Person made a statement, quoting the Code of Jewish Law, women and unmarried women have to cover their hair. Now, what's the problem with this statement? I'm not saying it's not true. The statement quoted was true. Statement was true. What's the problem? Anyone who's ever lived in a Jewish community, if anyone's lived in a Jewish community, you don't see single women covering their hair. Not Ashkenazic, not Sephardic. Maybe, in Yemen, they had younger women cover their hair just so they were married, so they get raped or abused. That okay. But in general, that's not true. Single women don't cover their hair. So you can say, okay, so why does it say it? Okay, so they have to see what the commentaries say, of what it's talking about, what the context is. So someone showed me this. I couldn't even watch the whole video because this person was going through it, butchered every single Hebrew word, which is a dead giveaway. I don't know why this person making videos anyway, still making videos, whatever it is. But he makes this statement, okay? But I said that can't be true. I said, I'll look it up, but someone sent it to me, so I looked it up. Okay, the statement is, is there. It says married women, unmarried women, it's brought down. But what's the case? It's not there just brought down for nothing, right? It's a whole specific case. But this idiot doesn't live in a Jewish community. Because if you would have lived in a Jewish community, you wouldn't make such a statement, or you would explain what the statement meant. Right? Because I would have had an obvious question. My obvious question was, in any community that you would go to, Hasidic, Chabad, Ashkenazic, Sephardic, Yemenite, no single woman covers their hair. None. I've never seen it in 30 years. Okay, you want to bring up this law, this halacha? Okay, I don't have necessarily an issue with that. But if you're going to quote it, tell me what the commentators say. But he probably couldn't because can't read Hebrew, can't translate it. And these commentaries are not translated. Okay, but you have to tell me what the context is. You cannot make a video about Jewish law, make a general statement, and say, single women have to cover their hair when nobody does it. So now you have to explain to me why people in the Jewish community, why single women don't cover their hair. Forget about married women if they're divorced. Let's say they're divorced or widowed. That's a different issue. Single women, that was a statement. Single women don't have to cover their hair. Okay, I can also read it in English. I can also read it in Hebrew, right? Okay, so what does that mean? What's the case? There's a specific case, the commentaries say. It's not just a general thing. Single women don't cover their hair. How do I know? This is olive based. Because if you live in a Jewish community, you know that statement's not true. 100% you know it's not true. So therefore, you got to tell me what the context is. But this person couldn't. Because he's going to butcher every word when he says it in Hebrew. He certainly can't read the commentaries. That's clear. Right? So I would say, why are you making videos? And if you're going to make videos, at least do it right. Get it right. If you're going to make mistakes, at least admit you made a mistake. Right? But you don't make a general statement. It's not true. Even if the Code of Jewish Law, quotes it, that's okay. I'm not saying he doesn't say it. I'm not saying Rav Yosef Karo doesn't say it. Blessed memory. He says it very good. What does he mean? What does he mean? There's a context. It's not just verbatim we do that. Right? Not verbatim that. How do I know? Because in every Jewish community, single women don't cover their hair. Period. It ain't done. It's not done anywhere. So now you can explain the context, but he didn't. So what are you learning it from? What are you giving it over on a video and butchering every Hebrew word? Kind of a problem. If someone asks if she's divorced, does she have to cover her hair for the rest of her life? Depends. If in the ultra Orthodox community, If she's widowed or divorced, she'll cover her hair. Could be she's dating to get remarried, maybe she'll uncover it or whatever. But in general, we hold in the Orthodox community, once the person's married, even if they're widowed or divorced, they cover their hair. In a non-Orthodox community, you're not married. Even if you're widowed, they don't cover their hair. I shouldn't say, I don't know. I don't know what the percentage of people who do or don't. But I guarantee there are women that don't cover their hair if they're divorced or widowed if they're non-Orthodox. Some do, some don't. Right? I don't know what the percentage is, but I definitely know there are women that I know. In the Orthodox community, that's not the case. If they're widowed or divorced, yeah, then they still cover their hair. Someone here says, never heard such a thing where single women cover their hair. You're right, strange. There are women, that they call them the shawl women. So they wear like an extra shawl, for like extra modesty. Some, there's some women, I mean, whatever, everyone's condemned them. They call them the burqa women because they wear almost like a burqa, right? But they want to do it for extra modesty. The problem is they totally, look like fruitcakes and everyone stares at them. So like it does the opposite, right? So yeah, single women, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Totally doesn't make sense. Someone here says they bought kugel for everyone. Very good. I don't know if they're going to enjoy it or not. Someone asked before. I just want to answer this question. Someone asked in Tehillim, in Psalms, person overcomes challenges, studies Torah diligently, even with difficulties. You can act on deeper aspects of Torah. Yeah, challenges and difficulties in life help. True, right? How do you understand Torah on a deeper level? Oh, so if a person's gone through difficulty, they've gone through, difficulty and hardship, what can happen is that by somehow being able to overcome it, and understanding the bigger picture, whatever, a person can understand Torah at a very deep level, right? What do I mean? So I speak about this a lot, the idea that you have to see the bigger picture, right? And when you see the bigger picture and you understand, how things work, we look at things very differently. So Cholos Levavos and Shar B'tachon, in the gate of belief, faith and belief, he says, he tells you how to look at the world. Even when things that look bad, happen. But he said, when a person does that and they internalize the message, their mind opens in a way that it didn't before. So again, I use myself as an example. So, going through that gate is altering, mind altering. And the reason is because it gets you to think in a totally different way. Gets you to understand things in a totally different way. In a deeper way. Right? So when a person goes through difficulty, what do they have to do? They have to internalize. They have to learn. They have to understand why things happen at a deeper level. When these things happen, what's the person going to do? They're going to reach for the Ramchal's book, Derech Hashem, the way of God. Why why people suffer? Spiritual forces. How do they work? What's the evil inclination? Reincarnation. Right? You learn something, you see, wow, there's a much bigger picture out there. There's a lot of different things going on. So when a person, struggles with a lot of different things, could be even a few different things, you got to internalize what's going on. What's the purpose? Why am I going through it? That's going to take you to a deeper level almost automatically. Because if everything's going good, you're not thinking that much. You're not delving into it too much. Once a person's got real challenges and difficult challenges, guess what? You're reading whatever you can about it. You're going to get to a different level. You should get to a different level. Why? Very simple. Because life's not easy. And when life isn't easy, either a person can just like crawl into a ball and cry. They can do that. Can have very low self-esteem, does not deal with anything. Right? But they want to fight out of it. They want to get out of it. They want to be stronger. How are you going to be stronger? Right? So I'll give everyone the easy recipe. Very easy recipe. The easy recipe is that you read things that are deep in Jewish philosophy. Like let's say, duties of the heart. You read things that are deep, Derech Hashem, the way of God, you understand at a deeper level. When you understand at a deeper level, it gives you perspective you never had. When it gives you perspective you never had, it's a whole different thing. Then when it happens again and you're feeling depressed and this and that, and you think, and you think some more and, you internalize, then you go, think, right? But you're getting to a much deeper level by seeing how the whole thing fits together and seeing divine providence, even if it's hard. So yeah, it opens different channels, different spiritual channels for a person's mind to be more open and more expansive in that way, in order to, it's going to bring a person to a deeper level, almost by osmosis. Because, we have to read, not everyone would agree with this, but, I think it's true. It's definitely been true in my life that, you read things about Jewish philosophy and now you got to put it in practice. But when you see the bigger picture, it's a whole different thing. You see a much deeper way how things work. Right? That's what challenges can do. They can draw us closer to God. God can open up, all kinds of portals for us to get greater knowledge. Now, how can I talk about this? Because it happened to me. But I spent years, going through books in Jewish philosophy. I'm not saying, everything was so easy and whatever, right? But it gave me a totally different perspective. Opened up my mind to different things I never would have thought of. Made my life so much easier because you understand the bigger picture. You understand where your challenges come from, what the purpose is, and it's okay. So, you got to be a mind miskaber. You got to, overcome it. You got to work hard to overcome it. True. Very, very true. But it brings you, to a totally different level of understanding, right? That's what it does. Someone here mentions some people into witchcraft cover their hair. Yeah, okay. It is interesting. For some women, they find covering their hair as being, it's very hard, especially if you have a lot of hair and you have beautiful hair, right? Like to cover it up is, can be hard, for some people. Same time, it can be very liberating, right? But, but to say that, single women seemingly, how old? Seemingly it could be even before, they hit puberty, they have to cover their hair. That doesn't mean after puberty. That doesn't mean that. Right? But again, if you have certain knowledge, this is basic knowledge. This is why I always say, someone's a JIT, Jew in training or a Noahide, please learn before you make videos. You want to pass on videos? Okay. You're going to make your own videos, you better have the knowledge. You better know what you're talking about. You don't want to be, you don't want me to make fun of it in one of these classes. Right? But I've seen it too often where people say things and you're like, it may be true, some of it, maybe. I'm not going to say it's all not true. Right? But if you don't get the basic facts true, even if that's what the Code of Jewish Law says, very good, okay. If, so my question would be, when I saw them, I'm like, you've never lived in a Jewish community. Forget about pronouncing Hebrew wrong. You've never lived in a Jewish community because that statement cannot be true. I'm not saying the Shulchan Aruch didn't say it. It said it, but there's a context. And even the Shulchan Aruch said it doesn't necessarily mean, practically speaking, we hold by it. There could be things that supersede it that we say, no. Shulchan Aruch says like this, but, we don't hold like it. The difference of opinion, we hold like this. Okay. But a lot of times we go by what it says. Fine. Not in this case. This case is very specific. Very, very specific. What it's talking about. But if the person would know how to learn, they would have clarified the statement saying, yeah, this is what the Tanakh says. But the caveat is it means like this, like this. Because it's obvious to everybody who knows something about Judaism, single women don't cover their hair. It's something they know. How do they know it? Because they've seen it. They live in a Jewish community. Their girls don't cover their hair if they're not married. They never seen anyone cover their hair unless they're married, or God forbid, divorced or widowed. So that statement needs to be clarified. So if you're going to tell me, you're going to clarify it, okay. You want to make a short video, you want to speak about, okay. Why aren't you sitting and learning? Learn how to learn, read Hebrew properly. Why are you wasting your time making videos? That's my claim also. I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go into it, but, you want to make videos, spend as little time as possible. You got an obligation to learn. If you got an obligation to learn, learn. Don't worry about making these videos. Some people say, no, it's a good thing. Spread it, make it. People need to learn. Their obligation is to learn. You want to do things on social media? 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, maximum. Maximum. The rest of the time, you should be learning. And if you are good, but it just seems like people just out there posting, this, that. If you tell me you're learning more, okay. You're doing that and you're learning 2-3 hours a day. Very good. If not, it's a problem. Person should not be on social media that long doing these different things. I understand Kiruv, drawing people closer is a big thing. True. Very true. But if you're not Jewish or you're JIT, you're in Jewish training, you got to focus on other things. That's not your focus. That's called a waste of time. So fine, someone says, I'm going to dedicate, 20 minutes a day. Okay, 20 minutes a day. Half an hour a day, maximum. Maximum. Then you'll be doing other things. You can say you do the same thing. Yeah, I'm also learning. Now, and I also have other things to do. So, other obligations, different issue. Yeah, but, but a person got, should never be on social media. A person should be learning. That's what they should be doing. If it's a guy, he's got an obligation to learn. That's it. Right? Busy making videos, this, that. Okay, do that later. Do that later when you have a lot of knowledge under your belt. I don't have an issue with that. Get the knowledge. Get the knowledge first. It takes a long time to get the knowledge. And it shouldn't be Mickey Mouse knowledge. You do it straight. Do it the way it should be. It's a grind. It's an absolute grind. Right? But that's what you have to do. You have to learn it. Learning's hard. Learning is not easy. It makes you tired. Right? It weakens you. But also, sharpens your mind. Teaches you how to think, how to analyze. Okay. But that's what you need. You need that first. That's priority. That 100% is more of a priority than anything else. You want to tell me you got this really thirst? Okay. My Rebbe told me, he says, you want to go out and do kiruv, you want to save the world? Great. You learn all day long. You want to go out a few nights a week? Maybe give some classes, speak to some people. Okay. That's it. That's it. That's what he told me. He said, you got an opportunity to sit and learn. Take it. Don't waste it. You'll do certain things at night. He says, fine. I'll let you do certain things at night. That's it. Your main focus day in and day out is your learning. That's your focus. One track, another track, another track. That's your focus. Because the more you learn, the stronger you're going to be. And he was right. 100% he was right. Could I have been successful with less knowledge? Probably. In different ways. But with more knowledge, different world. That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. He said, you're not going to be like one of these Mickey Mouse rabbis. You're going to learn, and you're going to learn, and you're going to learn, and then you're going to go out like fire. That's what he said. So I listened. I hung on to him for dear life, and he showed me the world. Showed me the world. Showed me a world most people will never see. By that, tremendous things to be thankful for. Right? But would would I be with the knowledge I have today if I would have gone out much earlier? Never. Not even close. Doesn't mean a person can't necessarily be successful. All you need is a power of speech. Plenty of people have a power of speech. Sometimes I hear people, I'll hear some people speak and it's just fluff. But all it is fluff. Okay, like there's no substance. Could be they don't have substance. Fluff sells, in a major way. Could very well be. Okay. And people give to what people want to hear. Okay. I want to see people with encyclopedic knowledge. That's what I want to see. They quote from here, quote from there, and they have all this knowledge. I'm not saying they don't have any knowledge. Right? Seeing people have knowledge. I want to see them, day in and day out. They're going to be taking other responsibilities. Okay. Right. A person's busy teaching others and doing other things. You have less time to learn. Okay. But you have to find time to learn. You got to make time to learn. Again, this is why most people out there doing Jewish outreach are not rabbinic authorities. That's the reason. They're too busy, giving basic classes and helping others, and it comes at the expense of their own learning. What happens? Right? They have a certain level of knowledge, okay? And things that are obvious and basic and this and that, fine. But if they're going to go into a complicated thing and say, oh, this is this and this is that, they have the knowledge, good. They don't have the knowledge, pass it on. And people will, if they're totally honest. If not, they look foolish. Again, I'm not thinking, a knock at anybody. I'm just saying that this is what I see. This is definitely what I see. Some people have more knowledge, less knowledge. But if a person say, what can I do? I'm saving people. I heard someone say, I'm going to end with this. I heard somebody say, they asked the following question. They said, listen, I'm saving souls. I'm out there. I don't have time to pray the afternoon service with a minion. It's more important, it's more important to save people. To save, future Jews, because you don't have any time. That's, praying with a minion is subservient to saving people's lives, saving people's souls. So I heard this in my own ears. He said, yeah, one of my rabbis said, blah, blah, blah. And, I have permission not to pray with a minion. But first of all, I don't know who said that. Well, second of all, what about your own relationship to God? It's a golden opportunity to speak to him, all our needs. Saving lives is more important than that. You don't have 10 minutes, 15 minutes in the afternoon. No. Rabbi said I don't have to. Hey, I'm too busy. I'm making phone calls. I'm doing this. I'm busy all the time. Who says that supersedes? That supersedes a direct connection to God to pray? You're exempt from praying 3 times a day because you're too busy saving lives? That's a little bit hard to hear. It's impossible to hear. Heard someone much greater than me slam it. Totally demolish this idea. Right? But that sounds funny. But this person, 100% for the sake of heaven, believed he didn't have to have this connection with God because he's busy saving lives and God's going to understand. Where do you see such a thing? Where in the world do you see such a thing? That comes from, okay, you got to plan your day around prayer. That's what you have to do. In the morning, you got to figure out, you got to get to work, this, that. You got to work it out. The afternoon in the winter, sundown is much earlier. You got to work it out somehow. At night, that's what you got to do. Nothing supersedes that in general. Listen, if it's saving a life, physically, it's one thing. You're somewhere, you're doing other things, you're under onus, it's another thing. But there's an obligation to pray 3 times a day. You got to tell, I'm saving lives. That's more important. I heard that. I flipped. I'm like, who in the world tells somebody that? What rabbi's got to, got his head on straight. He's going to tell us, no, you're right. You're totally exempt. What? You're not supposed to have a personal connection to God? You're not supposed to pray? You don't have any obligation to pray with 10 men? Like, who are you? Like, what are you, Moses? You can walk on water? Split the sea? You don't need to pray? Moses needs to pray. Everybody needs to pray. Someone's going to tell someone. For the sake of saving lives, that's okay. Got to have real big shoulders to say that. That's why my Rebbe says, anyone's involved in doing Jewish outreach, you got to have a rabbi you can ask your questions to. Can't do it on your own. Because they're going to be in a lot of situations we talked about before. You're going to be in a lot of situations you don't know what to do. You might think like this, you might think like that. Thank God, I had the Torah Giants of Generation guide me. And I didn't come out smelling like a rose, I said before. Right? A lot of situations were bad. The only question is, how bad am I going to look? That's it. But I said, okay, you tell me what to do. I have this question that I once went to with a certain question, and I came to it on a Thursday night. So I said it's important. I have to come. So he says, fine, come this time. So I came. So I asked him this question. I asked him a certain question. He said, oh, you saw what I wrote about in my book? I said, yeah. You saw all these letters I had, of Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, the father of Rav Chaim Kanievsky, bless the memory, the Stiper. I said, yeah. He goes, is that why you're here? I said, yeah. I said, I saw what the Rav said. I saw what the Stiper said. I need an answer. What am I supposed to do in this situation? Right? It was a bad situation. Thank God it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Right? But I had to know what to do. I had other situations like that. Call him up. What do I do in this situation? He's a Torah giant. He's going to tell me, yes, no, I got to think about it. Most times gave me an answer on the spot. Even things I thought were like extremely complex. And no, do this, do that, don't do this. Whatever it is. You got to have big shoulders. You got to know what you're doing. These are not, a lot of these are not simple questions. They're not simple questions. And not everyone's going to get the same answer. Depends what it is. Right? But, like we said, I've been spoiled 25 years, 26 years, been able to ask him whatever I want about anything. And even if he disagreed with most rabbinic authorities, he's my rabbinic authority. That's it. Somebody here says he's going to get to Kugel. Good. He went against other rabbinic authorities. He's got shoulders. I didn't ask other rabbinic authorities. I asked him. Paid a price for that also, in different ways. But, at the end of the day, everyone has to have someone they can go to for advice. You can't, there are things you just can't navigate yourself, regardless of how much knowledge a person thinks they have. Things are complicated. We don't see things, we have our own biases. So we think, oh, it's like this and like this and like this. And you might hear, well, no, actually, it can be like this. They don't think outside their own, their own mind over here, right? They have to get someone who's unbiased. You go, you have to ask your rabbi this. It depends what it is. I just, my life happen to have a lot of complex questions that are just bad situations to be in. But you know what? What are you going to do? You're in that situation. You're in that situation. Right? So you have someone big, big authority to go to. Very good. Right? They'll tell you what to do, one way or another. That's it. But you got to listen. Not always easy to listen. I've had times he told me to do certain things and it was hard. I'm not going to say not. It's hard. I always tell him, I do listen sometimes. He goes, yeah, sometimes. But, I didn't go wrong. He told me what to do, and that's what I did. And that's it. I took whatever he said. And sometimes it was hard. But, you get in these situations. It wasn't my own fault. That was the situation. That was the hand I've been dealt with. Imagine you're playing poker, right? You're playing poker. You got all single digits. What are you going to do? Fold. You have no pairs. You have nothing. So everyone's given their own hands. Their own hand. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes not. And there's a situation we go through that's, it's not so clear what to do. There are different factors involved. How people are going to get affected. They're not going to get affected. Can you rely on this? You can't rely on it. Things are more complex than people think. I've had certain things I thought black and white. He says not black and white at all. This reason, that reason, the other reason. Okay, eye opener. That's why he's who he is and I'm who I am. Plenty what to learn. But at the same time, person needs guidance. They always need guidance. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And if a person has someone they can go to get that guidance, they're rich. They're rich. Someone can answer their question or get answers to their question because it's life is complicated. Life is very complicated. Things that, there may be nothing wrong with it. You may not want to do it. But it doesn't mean that it's forbidden. If it's something forbidden, there's no way around it. There's no way around it. Sometimes for the sake of peace and sake of harmony, you might have to do things you don't like. Okay? If you don't care, the repercussions are what they are. Okay? Unless it's something that's like a stringency, that's a different issue. Then who says you have to put a stringency on someone else? It's going to cause problems. but I don't want to give in. Okay. Right? I'm talking for myself here. A lot of things I didn't want to do. I had no choice. I'm not saying necessarily there were stringencies, but I don't want to rely on certain things, but for the sake of harmony and peace, certain things I had to do. Wasn't pleasant. Could have made a much bigger war. Wasn't worth it. Was I rip-roaring mad? Sure. I don't have to do certain things, especially if there's no respect. That's hard. Right? That's very hard. But it makes us who we are. It strengthens us in that, in that sense. Because today, now many of these things are just non-issues anymore. They're non-issues for a lot of reasons. But one of the main reasons is because I don't need these boundaries anymore. There's certain things I'm just not going to do. They know I'm not going to do it. That's it. It's not going to happen. I don't have to compromise my values. Sometimes you may have to. It depends. But the hardest thing, and I'll tell you, the hardest thing is, let's say you compromise. You do what you had to do. But guess what? They don't respect it. They don't respect you had to jump through hoops. But they don't care. That's hard. That's extremely difficult. So now, to me, it's a non-issue because it doesn't matter anymore. I have a totally different attitude. Over the last 10, 15 years, my attitude totally changed. People want to say this, do that, okay. I'm not, I'll get involved absolutely where I have to. If I don't have to get involved, I'm not going to. It's not worth it. Let people enjoy themselves, this, then. If there's something you have to say or do, okay, you have to. I picked my battles very carefully. At the beginning, I didn't. Caused other problems. Right? So you want to pick your battles. Is it very easy to just jump on what other people say? 100%. 100%. Can't even tell you how many times I'd love to do it. Love to do it, just slam someone, put them in their place. But, no point. There's 0 point. Sometimes I think there is a point, but there isn't. It just doesn't matter anymore. It's taken a long time to get to that point. But if people get to that point, at a much earlier time, you realize it's not worth it. You have plenty of other things to worry about. It's like I need another hole in my head. For what? Or aggravation? Hey, come on. But, people say, but it really gets to me and it's really hard. You're right. We have a lot of tests in mind. And sometimes we got to deal with the hand that we have. We're going to deal with the cards that we have. And a lot of times, very unpleasant. Okay? Sometimes you may have to do things you never in a million years want to do. Okay? You might have to do that. Okay? So if you have to do it, you do it. Where does it become almost impossible? Where there's no respect. That's hard. That I can tell you is hard. But you know what? I've gotten over that also. To a big extent. Because I know they're not going to show, they're not going to have respect. Okay? So they're not going to have respect. I'll do what I have to do. I'll open my mouth where I have to. Otherwise, I'll keep my mouth shut. Usually. I would say 98% of the time, that's the case. Keep my mouth shut. You gotta say, well, that must be hard. Yeah. It's not easy. But it's not worth it. What am I gonna start for? No, there's no point. 0 point. So if I have to, I'll say something. Someone asks me something, I'll answer them. Will I be careful about being politically correct? Yeah. I'll be very careful what I say. Okay. All right. But I have to answer everything they say. They're having a whole conversation about politics. I'm not getting involved. That's my opinion. I don't follow politics. That's it. Wow, don't you have it? No, I don't. Doesn't really matter. Sometimes I'll pipe in. A lot of times, what they call it, water off a duck's back. I just let it go. There's no point. If I say, I know somebody that they'll ask me a question. They're not interested in the answer. So I think this. Okay. It asks me a question. They ask the question, what do you think about this? Well, I think this. I let them talk. I learned this the hard way, but I let them talk. Because I don't care what I have to say anyway. So I'm gonna make an issue out of it. I'm gonna give my opinion for what? I mentioned something once, more than once. Oh, I disagree with that, and I think, okay. Was it worth it to get in a big fight? No. Am I ever going to convince them? No. So you can say, why are you having the conversation? Okay, that's a question. That's a question. But, in general, it's not worth it. Definitely not worth it. All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, which I'm in a good beginning of the day, middle of the day.